Riot's MMO got suspicious in direct news.
You wanna hear a crazy stat? I've been making videos for 13 years. I've been
Holy
making League videos for 12 years. And this is my number 1,000.
Holy fuck.
Alright, enough for the break, back to the grind. Whenever I get to talk
Wow.
about the Riot MMO, I have to be wary of the fact that the
I wonder how
people
many videos I've made. I have no idea.
who like these videos the most do not come from League of Legends.
Yep.
In fact, believe it or not, but most of that audience comes from World of Warcraft. Not only is this apparent by the amount of
Okay, yeah, there it is.
WoW creators reacting to my videos, which I'm totally fine with, but also, here is a more statistical proof. And so, for all of you who
Wait,
came
what's
here,
this?
here is a more
Wow, I think.
statistical proof. And so, for all of you who came here from outside the normal sphere, if we want to talk about what happened to Riot's MMO, we have to talk about the big news that arrived from League's narrative team. It all started last week with a new drop from League's dev team, where outside of the normal news drops and new champion teasers, after a very long time, we got an update on what is happening to League's lore. For all of you who are unaware, for the last year and a half, the lore of League of Legends got essentially frozen. With the last story that would expand the League of Legends universe, which is not connected to a new champion release, being released in June 2022. After which, without any announcements, League's lore just stopped getting updated. And from that point on, the only development on this universe we got were new cards from Legends of Runeterra, as well as 2 new games from Riot Forge, which
I played that one, the Mage Seeker game. It was pretty good.
still sounds good enough, but for context, on top of that, in the past, we used to get about 20 or 30 short stories per year.
Wow.
So naturally, over time, the lore community went through the 7 stages of grief, starting with frustration and ending with acceptance. And eventually, after that very long time, we finally got an update.
Okay,
It
what
was
is
an
it?
update that on paper didn't seem that big. But in fact, it is so significant that I turned those 2 minutes of news into a 30-minute long video.
That's impressive. That's a... Alright.
Among these short news, we
That's
learned that
content.
Riot is dropping short stories. Because truth be told,
Okay.
people are too lazy to read and almost nobody engaged with them. Which,
That is... You know what? I believe that. Yeah. I believe that, for sure. Nobody read the shit.
even though my job used to rely on those, I have to agree with it. These days, if a story is not narrated, people won't care.
Right.
I mean, look at today's youth. They won't stand a narrated video if it is over 10 seconds long. So instead, Riot will
Well,
focus
you
their...
have to have, guys, you have, in order to have people's attention, you have to have a person talking with like a hot girl in the video, and then above her, it's like a guy driving a car in a video game, and he's just like driving a car randomly. And like that's the level of stimulation that you need to hold somebody's attention nowadays.
stories onto the bigger projects, be it bigger cinematics or gameplay events. But this is also connected to another big piece of information. The one that from now on, everything that comes out from League's IP will be canon in one unified universe. Because
No, that's good. I really hope they don't go with a multiverse. I feel like any game that goes with a multiverse, I'm like, okay. So you gave up. Oh, I see. So you're giving up now.
those of you who don't know, that is not how the lore used to function. League of Legends used to be a bit more like a multiverse. Now, I have never seen the Avengers in my life, but from what I've been told, it functions a little bit like the MCU. The core canon universe.
Well, the MCU works really well, and everything in the MCU is canon. It's all in basically the same universe, and it makes sense. The only reason they had to do a multiverse for Marvel is because there were comics wrote 40 years ago that don't make sense today.
is the one that was connected to League of Legends.
Oh, by the
And
way, guys, In case you didn't know, the MCU ended in, I think it was 2019, whenever Avengers Endgame came out. That was the last Marvel movie that came out. They stopped making them after that.
Its lore came from a website called Universe, which is where you can also find the interactive map. But from this core universe, you had other versions that would branch out.
Right.
For example, Arcane was never canon in the core universe.
I thought it is now.
In fact, the differences in the stories between Arcane and League of Legends are quite big. Which...
Wait, so is Arcane canon or not? I thought it was. It is now. Okay, all right.
Is why the video where I explained those differences was so popular.
But
on the other side, we also had Legends of Runeterra, a card game rooted in League's universe, which also brought up things which were never mentioned in the core universe. And so, Legends of Runeterra was also considered a different version of the core universe.
Sure.
But now, with the news we were given, it was confirmed that all of these are being united.
Wow.
So that everything can be canon.
Oh,
now,
that's
of
good.
course, this would mean that some parts of some of the universes have to be retconned.
Oh, we can keep
because
that.
only one true version of the story has to make it through. Which is why, in some parts, there is a little bit of a confusion in the community.
Sure.
But in fact, it was confirmed that Arcane is now fully canon,
Holy
with
shit.
Legends of Runeterra being second in priority. Because
Right.
it was confirmed that the vast
Oh, this guy
majority
was
of
in
that
that
game
game.
is already in line with the new universe. Which means that these two together will overwrite everything else that came from the core universe. Now, I understand that all of this sounds a bit complex.
Yeah.
But there is a very good reason why Riot is doing this. On one side,
Well,
it
I
is
think they're doing it because they're trying to future-proof their game. Like, this is one of the biggest problems that developers have whenever they're trying to make, like, a extended universe of something, is that there's so much conflicting information. I think WoW had this happen a lot whenever they tried to, like, especially post, like, or, like, pre-Legion, things were really fucked up. Like, they were super, super fucked up. It was so bad, like, Blizzard had to write a book and unfuck everything. They said, this is so bad. We've got to write a new book. We've got to retcon half of this stuff because none of it makes sense anymore. Well, it never did, but now it really doesn't. So it's like what they're doing is they're making it an IP. That way they can make another show like Arcane. That way they can make a movie. That way they can make a another game. They can make an MMO. So the world can exist in like all in the same place. So that's why they're future-proofing it, which is smart, rather than just trying to have, like, 8 different versions of the same game.
a bit of a
Prequels,
reaction
sequels,
to
spin-offs,
feedback. Because no matter where you went, people either didn't know about the multiverses and they thought that Arcane was fully canon, or they knew about the different...
Because, like, am I the only person that thinks multiverses in games are confusing, stupid, and annoying? They're the most obnoxious fucking thing. I hate it's a cop-out. Yes, I think they're such a cop-out. Example? Let me think. An example of a stupid multiverse. I think the Marvel movies. Or, like, look at DC Comics. I think that's good. Fate, Grand Order, I don't really know a lot. Warlords of Draenor. That's a fucking perfect example. Versus make me not care about the lore anymore. Yeah, and that's the reason why. Because the multiverse, this is why I think multiverses are stupid. It's because whenever you have time travel or multiverses, I think time travel is kind of the same thing, is usually it effectively is, you take away the finality of everything in the game and everything in the story. Because there can always be another version, there can always be another timeline, there's never any stakes, nothing matters anymore. There's no permanence to anything. It's all meaningless.
versions of the story, but because Arcane was so good, they wanted it to be canon. So with this merging, you're gonna be satisfying most of your audience. Which, by the way, now also means that by watching Arcane, you're just teasing yourself for the MMO. But the other reason why this happened, and arguably the more important one, is that this is a setup for Riot's future games.
Exactly,
Right
yeah.
now, besides Riot Forge, there are 3 big games related to Runeterra which Riot is working on.
Project
The
L,
fighting
yeah.
game nicknamed Project L,
This looks
a
pretty
kind of a
cool.
forgotten top-down fighter called Project F, which we still have no information on besides that very short clip, and of
Oh, I
course,
never saw
the
that.
long-awaited MMO. But the amazing thing about these games is that now, with the news that arrived, we now know that all of these will be connected. The places will
And it gets people to play the other games. Like, a lot of the reasons why people play the Riot Forge games are because they're in the Riot universe. Like, that's the big reason why people got into Hearthstone at the beginning. Is it was like, oh my god, you can play, oh, these cards are from World of Warcraft, right? So yeah, that's the same reason, actually, whenever I think about it, that's the same reason people got into WoW. Is because, oh fuck, this game's based off of Warcraft 3? That's awesome.
will exist across all the games. The characters will be consistent no matter where they appear, and their story and motivations should be linked in some way. Of course, that is unless it gets overwritten with gameplay. Now, I know that all of this may sound insane, and perhaps a little bit far-fetched because it may not seem like a big deal. But that is where Riot disagrees. Because a very important detail is that Riot announced that they now have what they call League's IP team, with their job being to oversee everything that comes out of League's IP and make sure that all the stories that come out are consistent in that one singular universe.
That's good. I mean, this is, yeah, that's smart. A lot of games are a lot of, like, I think this is what Blizzard did. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like probably some form of extended role that Chris Metzen has.
Again, in other words, there is a whole team that is dedicated to make sure everything is canon and everything is consistent.
And what happens whenever you don't have this is the Overwatch age reveal. Yeah. Where Kiriko is training with, what's his name, Genji and Hanzo, whenever they're all kids, and then Genji and Hanzo are 40 and Kiriko's 20. Oops.
Forward, from today, all new storytelling is going to be part of one shared canon, rather than a jumble of different experiences that are similar but inconsistent. And our goal is to ensure that major events in our stories, as well as the essence of what makes a champion who they are, will be reflected across everything that Riot makes.
Which, as it turns out,
Somebody says, do you feel like Riot's overtaking the PC game industry where Blizzard aimed in the past? Riot is in a lot of ways the new Blizzard. Like, they release very good games, and all of their games are good. And they have a huge fan base of people that are, like, fervently fans.
A big deal for Riot's MMO.
Awesome. What do you mean?
So let me explain how it's related to that. You see, in the past, when I was working on the Riot MMO videos, we always talked about everything as a hypothetical. We knew what existed in the universe. And so we were able to pick out all the things Riot might put into their game. Did you catch it? No matter what we talked about, be it the base world, the races and classes, the bosses and villains, the loot, or even the mounts, they were always things Riot might put into their game. Because we always assumed that the MMO will be a twist on their universe. But now we know there will be no twists. Not with the IP team overlooking it. Now, what's even better is that if you go...
it's like you know exactly what to expect now.
Back to those videos, you'll see that for the majority of the examples, I showed you things from Legends of Runeterra, which was confirmed to be one of the foundations of the new universe. Which means that all those videos became way less hypothetical and way more like a guideline for what is Riot trying to recreate. Or in other words, somehow those videos became a lot more relevant. Which is funny because one of the big critiques I got for those videos was that they were awful because Riot's MMO was just one big mystery and I was making stuff up.
That's so dumb. Anybody that said that is dumb. Like, they're not just going to make everything up. They're just going to use the existing world. The same as they do. Like, yeah, what idiot dumbass would say that?
So was I now? To put this into context for WoW's audience, if we go back to 2002...
Which game do you think's gonna come out first? The Riot MMO or Ashes of Creation?
Oh god, we are old.
Ooh.
Back to when Warcraft 3 was released. If you look at all the world building that came with it, you'll see that since then, things changed.
Yeah.
Especially if you look at the world map. The Warcraft 3 map was vastly different from what made it into WoW. Yeah. In a way, people considered the WoW version an upgrade and an evolution over what came before.
Yeah.
But when you break it down, it also became an alternative take on the world. One that made more sense story-wise and gameplay-wise. Because the map was reconstructed so that leveling and traveling around made more sense. But at the end of the day, there was still a lot of canon story that happened on the old layout.
Yeah.
And well, for the longest time, this is how we thought Riot's MMO would work. When it comes out, there would be some changes to the story and the world, so that the
And I think there probably will be like minor nuance changes and like geography, like adaptations, but in a general sense, yeah, like I don't think that it's going to be like one for one in every single instance. But yeah, of course you're going to see a little bit of that, but nothing big, yeah.
MMO wouldn't run into gameplay issues, which means it wouldn't really be a one-to-one recreation of what we had. Exactly like what happened between Warcraft 3 and WoW.
Yeah.
But now we know that Riot is planning ahead of time. And they are setting up their new universe so that there would have to be only a minimum of changes. And so that they can try and go for a one-to-one recreation. Now, is it realistic that Riot will succeed at this?
No, and I don't think that they should try to go for a one-for-one recreation of the geography if it doesn't make sense for the gameplay. Because, like, you can easily say, like, geography is the easiest thing to change and have it make sense. Oh, well, the map wasn't completed. Well, go look at maps from the 1500s. They're not the same as the maps that we have now. The maps from 1500s weren't the same ones that we had from the year 1000. It's actually probably the easiest thing that you can make an excuse for. Now, you can't massively change things. You can't just like turn this around, put this in the middle, put this on the bottom. No, but like just minor changes.
Somewhat. If Arcane told us anything, it is that Riot can really pay attention to the tiniest details. But for the sake of good gameplay, I'm not gonna nitpick some of the changes. So now, with all of this said, Legends of Runeterra kinda became a blueprint for the Riot MMO. Think of it like an archive of concept art that Riot will try to put into their MMO. Sure, yeah. I think everyone can agree that Legends of Runeterra has a lot going on, so not everything will be part of the MMO. At least at launch. Because during my interview with the MMO team, they said that their ultimate goal is to recreate the Runeterra that we know. Funnily enough,
of course, right? I mean, they're not going to release everything on the launch because they got to get you to buy an expansion.
Probably said it while knowing that Riot will be changing how the universe works. So they probably knew those words would have some weight. Even though back then, I definitely didn't. Which also means that everything I showed you in my videos might as well be real. Which kinda came as a surprise to me as well, to be honest.
There it is.
When you have a look at the mounts, the question is no longer, will they put this dog into their...
100% they're gonna make this dog in a game. Like, I could have told you this before they even announced this. There's no way they don't put this dog in the game. Now, this dog will probably be a shop mount because it's just a really cool mount, but it's gonna be in the game.
The question now shifted to how will this dog appear in their game?
Yeah, exactly.
Because now we know that dog is somewhere in that world. When it comes to all the big bosses and villains, the question is no longer who will they pick to be in the MMO, and it's gonna be more about how will we meet Viego, the greatest villain in this universe? That's unless you count Mordekaiser. Not to mention that when I was hypothetically talking about all the loot and all the legendary weapons that exist in this universe, well, now they should consistently exist in that universe, which suddenly gives the entire arsenal from the Ruined King a whole new meaning. So I would recommend playing a class that can use two-handed maces, because when we fight Mordekaiser, he better drop Nightfall. And
yeah, we're gonna play Warrior. 100%.
And lastly, with perhaps the coolest connection to these news, we have to mention the locations. If the IP team is making sure that everything is consistent,
it does
with
look
a pretty
like that.
high confidence, I can tell you that we are extremely likely to find some of the iconic places we know about in the MMO. But what's even cooler is that Arcane is on the same list too. So I can't wait to explore something like The Last Drop. Because no matter how or when that place will be implemented, now we simply know that place will be there. So, to finish off this video, I just wanted to tell you that all the Riot MMO videos which I made, which people thought were totally random.
So basically he just made this video to tell everybody that whenever you thought that I was wrong, well now I'm right, and here's how everybody knows that here's how you have to know that I'm right. Riot told everybody that I'm right.
Suddenly got a lot
I'm canon
more
now.
Real. Just keep in mind that I am actually not confirming anything. I mean, now we know that all the things that appear everywhere will be in that world somewhere. But that doesn't mean everything will really be there. Because at that point, the scope of the entire MMO would be unrealistic.
Well, they can't do things that are like this. And I think that Riot probably has learned from the Blizzard storytelling mistakes. Where, like, having celestial eldritch beings like this thing, it's much better for this thing to exist, theoretically, rather than to actually interface with it or have anything to do with it. Things like this that are like, you know, the spirits and shit like this, yeah, keep it in the background. Don't actually let players interface with it or deal with it or anything like that.
Think of it like, we knew that Arthas was somewhere in Warcraft 3, so he was in the world, which meant that someday he would come to WoW.
Everybody knew it was going to happen.
That is how we should treat all the information.
Everybody knew it was going to happen. That's why the Lich King was such a big deal.
But more on that, since now we learned that everything around League of Legends is connected. In a way, literally everything that comes out will reveal a piece of the MMO. Meaning that even though, for example, Legends of Runeterra is not really making money for Riot, because it is so ridiculously free-to-play friendly, that entire game suddenly got a whole new meaning for Riot. Because even though it may not be a profit-driven game, it is a game that is driving the universe forward. Meaning that it is still giving value.
Well, it's a brand investment, and it gets people involved into the universe, and then after they play that game, they might play the other games, of course.
To everything else Riot is working on.
Is there a tweet
but
saying
also,
this is confirmed?
more importantly, even the
about
cinematics will show us what's going to be in the MMO. Because yes,
really
it was confirmed that some of the previous cinematics are canon in the new universe, which most likely means that Awaken and The Call are canon, and even all the future cinematics, including...
Well, I think they're going to make these canon because, honestly, just because they're really cool. They're like, well, we have to find some way that this actually happened, right? Because the fans really liked it. Like, I mean, you got to keep in mind, like, this is just, I mean, they're just making this shit up, right? Yeah, eat the content. Yeah, like, what the fuck?
The one that will feature Aatrox will be canon too. Which also means that the new cinematic that's coming at the beginning of 2024 featuring...
Sorry, somebody said, what does making them canon mean? Canon means that it is part of the official universe that everything else in the story exists with permanence in. So, like, if something happens in one of the cinematics, it's not like an inconsequential offshoot fan fiction. This actually happened in the universe of the game.
The Godslayer will generate some hype for the MMO. Because again, in a way, all of these parts are consistent across that one universe. So it technically all serves as the MMO marketing. This is by far the best benefit of this new universe. Literally everything that comes out of the singular League IP will serve as hype to promote everything else that is also part of the IP. So we may not be getting any news from Riot's MMO, but in a way, we are. This also means that this guy stays fully canon now.
Damn.
So we may find him in the MMO one day.
Damn.
But of course, since the hype for Riot's MMO
he's in the game
reignited yet again with all these news, why don't we cash in on it a little bit?
Wait, that's Volibear? Is that the Shy Lily Volibear? Oh, that's all they... Okay, never mind. Yeah, I was confused.
And so, knowing that all the things I showed you before became a lot more real now, here's a little bit of a hype piece to tease what this universe can give us.
Okay. This is like, what's the fucking... What was it, Natchatar. Oh, that's cool. There's nothing like that in WoW. It's like Revendreth. Very cool. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's not the same as in WoW. There's nothing like that in WoW either. Kind of, but not really. Nothing like this. Maybe Oldham a little bit, but not really. Okay, that's cool. I don't know if they'd ever do something like that. So all this stuff is actually canon. So we're gonna be able to kill that thing. Oh, that's cool. Holy shit. The worst stuff in the universe? Yeah, wow. Stylized graphics? Yeah, of course they're not gonna make it photorealistic. They can't. If they make it photorealistic, the quality requirements will make it to where most people can't play the game. Yeah, that's really cool. Holy shit. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Oh, fuck. Yeah, I wonder what the scale of this game is gonna be. Badass, man. That's really badass. I can't wait to play this game in 20 years. The art's amazing. Yeah, as I said, I think that Riot now has a lot of the same energy that people had for old Blizzard. And you want to know the real reason? Is it's not because of the sexual harassment lawsuit Blizzard had, because Riot had one of those too. It's because the games are good. That's the real reason. It's all about the games. The games are good, and so people like the company. Yeah, there's the video right there. It's a Neckert video. He made this a few days ago. Make sure to give it a like. This is a good one. I applaud him making an entire video just to tell everybody and remind everyone that not only was he right, but he was more right than they ever expected, and everyone saying that he was wrong is wrong. So yeah, good for him. Faced, I was right. Yep, there it is. That's basically what this video should be, the title of it. It should just be, I'm right. Also, no Riot games are pay to win. It's definitely a good thing. Not really. Everyone hates League and Valorant, but we still play it because we're addicted to toxicity. I think that people hate League and Valorant in the same way that people used to hate WoW. Yeah, I hate WoW. I play it every day. People don't really hate WoW, and they don't hate League or Valorant. They love the game. They just hate playing it sometimes.